Body shot. Ooh, that hurt, didn't it?
When adrenaline starts pumping and you know what you can do with this right hand, it's hard to not do that.
Here are your hosts, Derek G and AJ.
Welcome back, folks. What's going on? My name is Derek G. I am your host, and this is another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast, the best MMA show in town, in the business. You already know what time it is, and we're breaking down UFC Vegas 36. And this is a really, really high-stakes middleweight matchup that we have on our hands between Derek Brunson and Darren Till. Now, this was a card that was originally supposed to be slated in London. This was supposed to be an international card, but you know the business. It's COVID-19 season, so we rooted, we stationed, and we locked in to Las Vegas. You know what time it is. Let me bring in my co-host, AJ. AJ, what is happening, brother? How are you living? How is the weekend treating you?
Woo, the weekend's nice, Derek. It is a cool 105 degrees in Austin, and we feeling it out here. Although the light, like I've said before, man, it's a nice place. You gotta go check out the lakes if you're ever in Austin too. I know Lady Bird can get a little crazy for your dogs, so go check out Lake Austin. It's some good sunshine out there, brother. I'm having a great time here. This state's treating me very well, man. How you living?
I'm living good, man. That's actually rare. Out here in Nevada, it is a nice, cool, breezy 97 degrees. So feeling that 105. Listen, I do want to just give the condolences out there because we're suffering real life climate change and all that. You see, New York is flooded. I think it's Philadelphia flooded. Louisiana got hit with some water and all that. So if you out there and you in those areas and you tuning in still, man, stay safe, stay healthy, all that good stuff. But listen, man, we enjoying the sunshine. We doing what it do. And we got a really fancy poster right here in the corner, AJ, that we need to talk about. Derek Brunson versus Darren Till. Now, I like it simply because, you know what I'm saying, we got the color contrast with the flags in the background. I always love the flowy flags and all that good stuff, man. And we got the appearance of blonde Derek Brunson, man. So, you know, we got to do our poster score for this event. Now, tell me, what are you giving it, man? We had some low scores last week, but what are you giving it this week?
Yeah, we had some low scores last week, and honestly, I do like this poster too, but I feel like it's the same one we've seen rehashed over and over again. I'm glad they added the flags in the back instead of just the black and white face off. But I'm giving this one a 6, brother. Right down the middle of the road. I do like it a lot more than last week, but like I said, I feel like they're just rehashing stuff, which gets hard when it's week after week after week. What are you giving it, Eric?
Well, that's what I was gonna say. You know, there's only so many different ways you could line up a poster for a fight card, man. And I'm not gonna lie, this doesn't give me the, oh, this is gonna be a crazy card off the poster vibes. It's gonna be an insane matchup. This gives me more of a, okay, London, USA. The colors are basically identical. It's just a little different. So a little blending in right there. So I'm not gonna lie to you, man. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing thing in the world, but there's something about it that I do kind of like. So I'm gonna go 7. You go 6, I'm gonna go 7. Very subpar poster. Nonetheless, let's just get one final look when I bring it up here, man. You know, nice and big. Look at that, man. Fantastic. I like how it looks, but I guess we could move on from that, man. So folks, if you are keeping score, nothing has changed since last week. Clearly 95-68 for me on the year, 76 and 87 for AJ on the year, coming off a very hot 5-1, almost 6-0 effort over there at UFC Vegas 35, man. But we're not here to talk about the past. We're here to talk about the future. And AJ, man, there's some couple really good sleeper bouts on this card, but just the prelims are looking pretty nice, man. So let's give it one final ditch effort because we know there's going to be a couple weeks off before the next UFC card after this week, but we'll get to that at another time. So moving on to
it's time for some fight night.
If you ain't paying attention, you're gonna sleep on me and I'm gonna break you up.
Okay, AJ, so I did want to mention this really quickly because I got some paperwork here before we talk about a couple of really good sleepers on this card. Now, there were a lot of really high stakes matchups that were supposed to take place, and there are only going to be 10 fights on this card overall, right? Now, this is one of the rare opportunities, or one of the rare instances, I should say, where, believe it or not, we have 12 canceled bouts, overtaking, you know, overpassing, whatever you want to call it. 12 canceled bouts, only 10 bouts on the card. That's a very rare factor right there, and I want to just name off a couple of them, man. So we had Charles Jourdain, versus Lerone Murphy, who was supposed to be like a London card, right? That got scrapped. Jonathan Martinez versus Nathaniel Wood, another really good one, got scrapped. Paul Craig versus Alexander Gustafsson, man. Now, we know the return of the legend known as Alexander Gustafsson was supposed to come back, but, you know, injury got that out out there. And then, listen, man, Tyler Santos versus Mandy Baum, Magomed Ankalaev versus Volkan Ozdemir. The list goes on and on and on and on. The point that I have here, AJ, is do you think, obviously COVID is the situation that's going on right now. Do you think this was just a huge missed opportunity for the UFC? Because if this happened in London, this would have been a cracking card, especially if these injuries didn't go through.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's a huge miss, but there's nothing really you could do about it. I know there was a lot of visa issues on this one as well, man. It's crazy the climate that's going on, but credit to the UFC for still putting on a card. 12 canceled cards when there's only 10 fights on the actual thing, man. That's that's some paperwork shuffling and some moving and shaking that the admins have been doing. So credit to them, but it is a pretty big miss, unfortunately. So.
Well, we'll make do with what we have, right? With these 10 bouts scheduled up, man. So the last canceled bout before we move on to our sleepers, Alex Perez versus Matt Schnell. Danger Matt Schnell, man. That would have been a fire matchup in the flyweight contest, but that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about some sleepers, big dog. So we got a couple of them, man. I lined up one, you lined up one, and if you don't mind, I'd like to start off with the one that I have first. Not only because I think it's going to be a banger of a matchup, but it's literally the first fight on the card. So we got the Dragon, Jonathan Martinez versus Marcelo Rojo. And AJ, man, Jonathan Martinez, we know this dude is on the come up. He's a prospect rising through the ranks, but he suffered a nasty TKO loss. Really, it should have been a KO loss, but a TKO loss to Davey Grant in the second round of his last bout, man. And I want to know how that's going to affect him because he's going against a dog in Rojo in this next matchup, man. So just off the bat, when I started, kind of prepping for this, there's one thing that really stood out to me, and that's that Marcelo Rojo, he's got 14 of his 16 victories via finish, and his last 5 losses have come via stoppage. So you got to kill this man to get him out of there. Do you think Jonathan Martinez has what it takes to make this a back and forth fight of the night type matchup?
Oh, 100%, man. And that's exactly what I caught with Rojo too. Homeboy is a finisher, but don't let the L from Martinez fool you. Homeboy is a scrapper, and I definitely think these two, when you posted this one as a sleeper, man, I got excited because I wanted this one as a sleeper as well, bro. These dudes are gonna go back and forth, and what I like about Martinez is he has the style of if you've ever been in the gym, you start sparring, and the rule is, hit me as hard as you want to get hit. That's what Martinez does. He's down. He's like, all right, you swinging for the fences? We swinging for the fences, brother. And that's why I love Martinez as a scrapper. I think these two are going to make a very interesting fight coming up.
Absolutely. And the big thing is that it feels like Jonathan Martinez, at least in the popularity of the UFC in the last couple of years, is a little more popular than Rojo. Now, Rojo only has one UFC fight. He's done a lot of his fighting in Combate Global or Americas or whatever you want to call it, right? But not the UFC. But nonetheless, man, I think people are going to figure out who this man is because we just mentioned him earlier, but Rojo's lone loss in the UFC in his debut was against Charles Air Jourdain, man. So it's like that's not an easy dude to make your debut against, man. The last thing that I want to say regarding this is that I know for a fact Rojo is going to make this a dog fight, and he racked up a separate 5-fight win streak and 6-fight win streak 2 separate times in his career, man. It's just very impressive to me. I feel like it's a very difficult thing to do, and it's foreshadowing to some of the fighters that we're going to be talking about on the main card here. Nonetheless, man, just give me a real quick prediction on how the fight goes. You don't even got to tell me the winner of the fight, but how do you think this fight plays out? A finish, a decision? What do you think?
Derek, there's one best way to say how this fight is going to go, and it's an absolute dog fight, brother. I think we're in store for a brawl back and forth. This one ends by finish for sure, 100%, man. What do you think?
I mean, it makes sense. Both of these dudes are coming off of TKO losses. So, I mean, Rojo's was a little... It was a little accumulative damage more than how Jonathan Martinez was kind of that one left hook that just put him down. But I think that someone is going to have to it's going to be masked full of blood, crimson mask, the whole 9 at the end of that fight. But that's neither here nor there. That's the first sleeper, folks. First fight of the night. You got to tune in. Come on, what are we talking about? Now, AJ, let's talk about your next sleeper. Set the table for me, big dog.
Bro, this next sleeper is Dalcha Lungiambula versus Marc-Andre Barriult. And I think this one's a sleeper to me, Derek, because the UFC matchmakers were putting Superman against his kryptonite on this one. Lungiambula, he's an absolute beast. He's thick, he's stacked, he's looking like the Hulk coming out of there, but he has a gas tank issue. And the one thing we know about Marc-Andre Barriult is homeboy is a cardio machine. He's an absolute grinder. And that's why I say they're putting Superman with his kryptonite. So they're really testing Lungiambula right here. here to see if he's the real deal, if he's gotten his shape under control, and if that gas tank is caught up, man. And the thing about Lungiambula, like I said, he's absolutely thick, but he starts touching you up. He's very fast, and it's going to be a very short night for you waking up to sniffing salts, man. And the thing about Berio, he is always a grinder. If you're going to be fighting 15 minutes, he's going to be able to fight 25. Homeboy is, like I said, a cardio machine. And the fact that they're putting out such of a contest, they're making the matchmakers really put their work in for this one, gives me the idea that Lungiambula is going to go out there with a little bit of chip on his shoulder, a little bit of stuff to show on this one, being the fact that they all know, man, he has a gas tank issue, and we're putting you with the dude with an endless gas tank. I'm expecting fireworks from this one. What do you think, Derek? How do you see this one playing out? And who has the advantage going into this one?
Well, I love what you said first, how like Lungiambula is this like incredible Hulk type figure, because the first thing that I have written down from my notes on this is that Lungiambula weighs 185 pounds for all of like 10 seconds before this dude blows up. Like, he's the biggest middleweight I've ever seen in my life, man. And I'm sure there's a couple other ones, right? Like, nothing that's on the top of my head right now, but I'm sure there's a couple other big boys who have made welterweight before. Let me give the big example of Rumble Johnson, right? I'm pretty sure, did he fight at middleweight for a little bit before he went up to light heavy? Nonetheless, man, the point is this. I think that Mac-Andre Barriult had the advantage here because, like you said, Lungiambula has the gas tank issue. At the end of the first round of his last fight, this dude was like hyperventilating, you know what I'm saying? So he definitely has to get that thing in check. But he is that one-punch knockout finisher. He is that dude where his game plan is to blitz forward, slam you on your head, and TKO you to get you out of there. So ultimately, I do think Barriult is the kryptonite to the Superman-ness of Lungiambula, but at the same time, Superman is called Superman for a reason, because he can shoot lasers out and destroy his opponents and whatnot, and that's what Lungiambula can do with that mean right hand, or just really any strike, man. It's like he's so dangerous, man. So I will say this about this fight that really interests me, man. I think the reckless, abandoned approach of Lungiambula is a double-edged sword, right? Because on one hand, that can win him a fight. On the other hand, man, we haven't seen too much technique out of him. We've seen a lot of power, but not technique. And I've been over there hitting them jiu-jitsu classes recently, man. All it takes is one wrong shot to get pulled into a darce, to get pulled into a guillotine, and that's the end of the night. You're going to sleep. We haven't seen that yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did take place, man. My question to you on this one is, if this fight did go to the ground, right? Not a jiu-jitsu type matchup, right? But just some half guard type stuff, some wrestling back and forth. Who do you think has the advantage on the ground? Because both of these dudes can hold their own.
I was about to say, both of these dudes can hold their own, and the initial thought is Marc-Andre Barriult. That's the initial thought, but then when you really start looking at how good Lungiambula is on the ground, this one's a toss-up, man. It's crazy because Lungiambula, like you said, in his last fight at the end of the first round, he was really hyperventilating. But no matter what, when that bell rings, homeboy swings for the fences. He literally puts it all out there on the feet as well as on the ground. So you can't even count him out. When his back hits the mat, he pops up. When he's on top, he's wrestling, he's fully active, staying out of people's guards, setting up things. So initial thought is Berio, but this one, I'm going to go with a coin toss on this one, man. It's very, very close. Don't count out Lungiambula on this one, man. What do you think?
I have to agree with you, man, just because that power aspect. It's just like Derek Lewis, right? Black Beast, it's like technique, schmecknique. It doesn't matter. Like, I'll just stand up. Like, just get up, bro. What are we talking? Jiu-jitsu? Jiu-jitsu isn't real, right? Shout out to the Black Beast, man. This is going to be a really, really fun matchup, man, and I definitely see this fight ending in a finish as well. But it could also go to a decision because these are some of the toughest middleweights that we have on the roster right now in the UFC. But nonetheless, let me just shout out a couple of matches. You know what I mean? We don't really got to talk about it, but these are things that you need to look out for. There's only a couple of fights on this card, folks, so watch the prelims. Julian Erosa versus Charles Jourdain is going to be a fire contest, man. Julian Erosa is so experienced. Charles Jourdain is really putting on a streak right now. We got the return of Jack Shore. That's a very, very big name. I know Paddy Pimblett is definitely overtaking everybody. He is the star of the show, even though most casual fans probably have no clue who this dude is, but I'm telling you, this dude is a star in the making. And the return of Molly McCann, man. Shout out to that. Lots of good fights, folks. That's the sleepers for you. AJ, got anything else on the sleepers before we move on to the main card?
I'm glad you, not on the sleepers, Derek, but I am glad you shouted out the rest of the prelim card because there is some absolute bangers on this one, folks. You got to tune into the prelims. They're free. They're a little early. I know over here in Texas and on the West Coast, man, those late night main cards are getting to midnight and stuff. So this is a treat when you get to watch some absolute heater on the prelims.
Absolutely, man. So with that being said, folks, folks, if you like the sleeper breakdown, if you like the little recap that we're doing on that, drop a like, subscribe, bloodywaterpodcast.com. Hit us up on Instagram, Bloody Water Podcast, on Twitter at Bloody Water Pod. And listen, get your fix. You know what time it is, man. Just type that G thing into the Googles and it'll take you where you need to go. Nonetheless, man, you know what time it is, AJ.
Here's to another main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derek G and AJ.
And I have to say, most of the time, AJ, I always tell you, some of these dudes who are just coming into the UFC, they don't got a headshot. And Paddy Pimblett didn't, but I had to go and make one myself for him because that's how big of a name that is coming onto the UFC scene is. Now, do I think that the results are going to be as big as the hype? I'm honestly not sure, but I'll tell you what, man, there's very few fighters who have been as hyped up as this man coming in. And oftentimes that you see him talking, he's his own hype man. So let's talk about him, man. Paddy the Baddy Pimblett, man. He's making his UFC debut against Luigi Vendramini, man. And let me just say this, folks, I did misspell Vendramini's last name. It should be with the E instead of an A. Nonetheless, that's neither here nor there. We have a mean Brazilian with Italian heritage going against a Scouser, man. You know what I mean? One of these London cats, Paddy Pimblett, man. I need to ask you right off the bat, AJ, tell me what you know about this man, the double champ in Cage Warriors, the man who was literally taking the Conor McGregor approach into the UFC. Tell me what you know about this man coming into his debut.
Ooh, Paddy Pimblett. I feel like his approach or his dawning into the UFC was a little longer than expected. I remember hearing about Paddy Pimblett, I'd say maybe a year, 2 years ago, and he was supposed to be the hype train. He was supposed to be the dog coming in, but I'm honestly kind of glad he took his time. You know, that's the worst thing when you come in, you know, you have all that heat behind you and start going 2 and 3. That's what we don't want to see. But now I feel like he's actually able to control himself. He's got a little older, got a little more wiser. And like you said, the double champion Cage Warriors. Now, Cage Warriors might not be the top supreme of the tier list in the MMA community, but homeboy Paddy Pimblett, the Baddy, has been running it for quite a while, and I'm happy to see he's finally made his way into the UFC. Like you said, he's the supposed next Conor McGregor. He's the next dude on the block. He has the swag. He has that English accent. And the nice thing is, not only does he talk big game, but homeboy carries around a big stick, and he'll wallop you anytime he's in the cage, man. Very talented, much more of a grappler. You know, his talent on the ground is very, very supreme. He's also very good on his feet. And what I like about him, he has that little bit of arrogance to him where he keeps the guard low. So he makes the fight entertaining, man. He doesn't always have the guard up high and he's blocking every single shot, staying untouched. He'll be there to get hit. He's gonna make it a dog fight. And I'm glad to finally see him in the cage, man, in the big show finally. What do you think, Derek? What are your impressions on Paddy, the Baddy Pimblett?
Well, like I said, man, unmatched charisma, unmatched bravado, you know what I mean? He has the McGregor-esque belief in himself, which is so important. And I'm glad that you mentioned you've known about him for a little bit because he actually had UFC opportunities multiple times. He actually got offered a chance to jump into the big show 2 times, once in 2016, once in 2018. He turned them both down because he says, listen, man, I'm still developing. You know, I was out there partying all week long while I was fighting, like the John Jones approach, right? Taking that approach, I was just going off of talent alone. Now I'm an athlete. Now I just stay in, I train, and I come to handle business. And I hope that he does because he's proclaiming himself as the new cash cow of the UFC. And he's already saying if he fought Conor McGregor, he would dismantle him. He's better than him everywhere. So I'm just like, it's like what we were saying. You got to believe you're the champ before you're the champ, but at the same time, you have to have a sense of grounding and reality. And I don't know if he's quite there yet, especially because, like you said, AJ, he is known for his highlight reel submissions. He is not known as a striker. He's more not necessarily. He's not one dimensional. Don't get me wrong. He can strike, but he is known for the submissions, especially the first and second round submissions. So with that being said, man, let's talk about the matchup, man, because I think that he has a very tough test in front of him. I know there's all this hype going into it. I know he was the former featherweight and lightweight champion in Cage Warriors, but you're in the big show now. And Luigi Vendramini, he actually said it himself. He says, listen, I know he was the best in England or whatever, but the UFC is like the World Cup. And guess what happened in the World Cup recently or whatever? I don't follow soccer like that, but what was it? Italy beat England, and I guess that's a super huge upset or whatever. But nonetheless, that goes to show this is the best and the best of the world right here. So Luigi Vendramini, the Italian stallion, man, this is a BJJ black belt who got crazy pop in his hand. So I wanted to ask you about this first and foremost. UFC is doing Paddy Pimblett no favors by giving him somebody who can not necessarily, maybe not match his BJJ because his BJJ is super high level, but it's not like you're giving somebody who's just a striker who can go and just take him down and dismantle him, right? So with that being said, AJ, what do you think about the matchmaking in this one? And how tough of a test do you think Vendramini is for Pimblett in his UFC debut?
I think Vendramini is way tougher than a lot of people are giving him credit for, Derek. I feel like in the public's eye, Vendramini's a can. They're just thinking, oh, they're feeding Vendramini to the dogs. Paddy Pimblett's just going to run through this dude and really make a name off himself. But that's not so, man. Vendramini is absolutely a banger of a fighter, crisp striking, and it looks like his striking's a lot better than, his grappling or at least his ground game. Like, you feel like he's a striker a lot more, especially because in his last outing, he wasn't able to take down his opponent, but that's not the case, man. Vendramini is absolutely well-rounded on the ground. And the nice thing about Vendramini is he carries power all the way through the fight. So whether it's the first round or the third round, he got pop on his shots. And what I like about him, yes, he does have very strong, striking in his hands. He has a lot of power there, but he has a sneaky right high kick that you're not going to see very much. He's not going to be cranking right high kicks left and, all day long, all throughout the entire fight. But when he sees that door open, man, he's throwing it, and it's a very split second blitz of an attack. And what I like is he's also getting better throughout each fight. Vendramini still seems like one of those fighters who is not really known throughout the entire, the casual fans, but soon enough, Vendramini, he's there. And I don't necessarily know if he's going to have gold, throughout his entire fight career, but he's going to be around for a very long time. I see this one very, very fast to start things off, and then we'll really see how the game starts to play out, whether it does end up on the ground or whether it stays standing. I think this one's going to be a very much up and down matchup going forward, when we're going to see a dogfight. A lot of people are counting Vendramini out in this one, but don't be surprised if he gets the dub, man. He's an absolute killer in there. And like I said, watch out for that high kick, man. Paddy keeps his hands low, keeps his guard low, and if he's not careful, that right foot's going to slip above his guard and catch you real easy. What do you think, Derek? How do you see this one playing out?
Well, listen, man, I think all the pressure is on Paddy Pimblett in this one. Just like you said, I think everyone is looking at Vendramini like he's a nobody, like he hasn't fought nobody, but look at who he's fought in the UFC so far, right? So his last two fights, he's fought dudes who are towering above him. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a crazy size discrepancy right there. Paddy Pimblett's going to be the same height, 5'10" and 5'10". Now, I don't know Pimblett's reach. It seems like nobody does because they don't list it on Cage Warriors, not on ESPN, not on Tapology, not on SureDog. You can't find it nowhere. So this dude maybe has these mythically long arms or whatever the case may be, or maybe I don't know. Vendramini got a 73-inch reach, though, so he is, generally speaking, having to close the distance on his opponents to be able to get in. He's more of a winging, hook-type fighter. That left hook, watch out for it, right, as opposed to straight shots down the pipe. But Paddy Pimblett, like I said, AJ, I think that his striking is good, but he's a little upright, and he doesn't move his head a lot. And that's the thing in the big show that I think is going to be a big wake-up call, because I've seen him in Cage Warriors, right? Do his thing, pressure forward, get the submission. But when that submission doesn't work and he has to rely on the striking, that's when the thing starts to falter. That's how he lost his last championship fight against, don't know his first name, but B-A-K. That is his last name. That was about 3 fights ago, and he lost a unanimous decision loss right there, right? So with that being said, AJ, what does it say to you, and we talk about this all the time, but what does it say to you when his last 3 wins, because he's 3-2 in his last 5, those 3 wins have come by submission round 2, TKO round 1, and submission round 1. The 2 losses have been via unanimous decision. What does that mean to you just in a microcosm in and of itself?
It means to me, if you're always losing by decision, you're really starting off strong and then fading towards the end of the rounds, fading towards the end of the fight. And especially nowadays, I don't know if it's just a blanket statement or not, but it seems like the last rounds matter the most, especially going to the judges, man. Especially if you're not getting it done through the entire fight, and you're letting the opponent kind of come back. I feel like the judges are starting to notice that as, oh, he's fading. Like, oh, he's getting tired. Oh, he's fading. That's the other guy is taking the control. And when you end the fight with the control, that's when things start really looking bad, and you can't be leaving it to the judges, especially if you just put in 4 minutes of really, really good work and then took a minute off. It's rough. What does that mean to you, Derek?
Well, I will say I agree with your sentiment about the judges. It's something that I learned in psychology class in high school. They says, generally speaking, when you read something, what are you most likely to remember? The beginning and the end, and not so much the middle, right? So you got to start strong and you got to finish strong if you're going to go to these decisions and you really think you're going to lock it in with the judges. But what it says to me is that and this is something that I saw in his last championship fight against Bak, man, he had him locked in, rear naked choke in that first round. Everyone thought it was over. This dude magically survived, and you could see that's one of the favorite things you like to say, right? He took his soul right there. You could tell. It's like he was still fighting. He was still game. He was still there, but you could tell he was like, damn, what do I have to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, I had it locked in. Now As the rounds go on, those shots get a little weaker and weaker. The grappling isn't really as crisp. That strength, those arms are gassed out, man. And I can just relate it to just rolling in the gym, right? You know, you're holding a position, you're holding on for dear life. Now, the second round opens up and your forearms feel like noodles. You don't got nothing left, man. Now I got to sit there and I got to stay at range and try to kick and whatnot, and I can't assert my game plan. So I think that might be part of the matchup that we see here, because Vendramini, if we know one thing about him, he's going to push the pace, man. He wants to be in your face, and he wants to, if he fights the way that he fought his third round against Faraz Ziam in his last fight, a kickboxer, right? He pressured him. He was like, he basically said, listen, man, fuck this. I'm fighting on the outside. I'm getting my ass kicked. I'm going to make it a dogfight, and we're just going to see what happens. I'm not afraid to get knocked out. And guess what? He had the most success. So ultimately, in a nutshell, so we don't spend too much time on this one, AJ, I think Vendramini has the power advantage. Pimblett, I do think he has the grappling advantage, even though Vendramini is a BJJ black belt, because we haven't seen him use his BJJ on the big level. But Pimblett, if he grabs your back, man, it's almost guaranteed you're going to get submitted somehow, some way. Or that submission threat is so high that it often lends to TKO opportunities with the ground and pound, because people are so worried about getting their neck snatched, they stop thinking about, oh, he could punch me in the face. You know what I'm saying? So ultimately, AJ, this is a big hype spot for Paddy Pimblett. If he wins, oh my God, to the moon. You know what I'm saying? If he loses, I think things are going to, a little reality check. It's going to be similar to me to Anthony Pettis' debut in PFL, where, you just lose, first thing, and you're supposed to be this big dude. You know what I'm saying? Or Clarissa Shields almost losing in the PFL or whatnot, and it was all this hype and whatnot. So with all that being said, good striking for Pimblett. He could check kicks very well. Vendramini, he's got rockets in his hands. Who wins this? How? And why, AJ?
Yeah, I definitely think a lot of people are counting out Vendramini in this one. And like I said, he doesn't have the name, but he can easily make a name for himself on this one. Me personally, though, I do believe Pimblett's going to get it done. I think he's finally had the time to not be the kid he was fighting back in the day. He's able to grow into his position. I'm going Pimblett, KO, round 2. I know I'm going with the KO instead of the submission, but I think we're going to see some hands at work. I think that dogfight's going to come out, and we're going to see some exciting things come from Pimblett, especially in the future. Who do you got, Derek, and why?
So I'm going to go opposite pick on this one. I'm going Vendramini on this one. I'm believing in his hands on this one. I'm believing in the pressure. I'm believing in him just making it a dogfight, asserting his dominance in this one and saying, listen, man, I've already had 3 fights in the UFC. You're an up-and-comer. Yeah, you got all the hype, but I'm going to show you who's really boss and who's really game, fighting for the pride of Brazil. I will say that he's not the most technical fighter, and Vendramini does like to change levels. It really probably isn't going to be his best idea against Pimblett, unless he says, I'm just bigger and stronger, and I'm just going to use my power to just, dominate the wrestling. I don't think it's a good idea. But with that being said, I think he makes it a dogfight. I think Pimblett can get the choke, and that's going to lead to a decision victory for Luigi Vendramini. Big upset off the bat. Only a plus 115 underdog, so it's not like people are just saying, oh, Pimblett's going to come in here and just smash this dude. I mean, the odds would be much higher if that were the case. So once again, minus 135 favorite is Pimblett, plus 115 comeback for Luigi Vendramini. Folks, if you're listening, you still got a little time to throw some money. I'm just saying, Vendramini, live dog on this one. And with that being said, AJ, I think that we can move on to the next one. Very hyped matchup, man. Very excited for this one. So this next matchup we got right here, this is one of your favorites, one of my favorites, but another one of my favorites. So Modestas Bukauskas, he is a minus 155 favorite in a light heavyweight matchup against Khalil, the Warhorse Rountree Jr., who's a plus 130 underdog, AJ. And I just have to say this, man. I know we're big fans of Tiger Muay Thai. We're a big fan of that gym over there in Thailand. We're a big fan of Bangkok ready Khalil Rountree. Not Khalil Rountree, but Bangkok ready Khalil. You know what I'm saying? We're a big fan of that guy. However, Modestas Bukauskas, I feel like, has been flying under the radar because, he's lost a couple. His last one against, Mikhail Alexijuk, right? That was kind of, I don't know. I gave it to Bukauskas, but, he lost the fight. It is what it is. The judges called it how they saw it, man. I need to ask you this off of the bat. We clearly know with Khalil Rountree Jr., this isn't a physical issue that he's been having as of late. I mean, in his last 5, he's 2-3. He's coming off a decision loss in his last fight, and then a TKO before that. But we know it's a mental thing. I think he even pondered quickly retirement after one of these last losses. You know what I mean? And then he was snapped out of it. And he was like, "No, man, I just need to work harder." In his pre-fight interviews, he was saying, What is your game plan for this? Work harder. That's it. He kept it simple. He's in Goggins mode. I love it. But my question to you is, do you think it's more difficult to fix a physical error than it is to fix a mental lapse in your performance style? What do you think?
I think it's a lot harder to fix that mental lapse, man, especially because in the gym, you can work hard all day long. You can work it. But if you're not doing the mental work in order to change that, it's hard, especially because like we've said before on this program, the first round, that's a very technical fight. You're in your element. You're kind of get that flow going. It's really technical. After that, the second and the third round, when the dog fight starts to happen, that's where the mentality starts to collapse. And that's where you really need to be mentally strong. And we've seen a lot of times where fighters, they'll make it out of round one, but then they tap out because it's a retirement. They're like, I'm good, man. Like this is crazy. And it's hard too, when you're in there battling and your body's going, but your mind in there is telling you like, all these things, stop, or you're not good enough, or whatever the case may be. I feel like that's the hardest thing, man, to get past, especially when you have that negative mindset always in the back of, your back of your mind, just kind of churning and burning things up, and you're not really focused on the task at hand. I think it's good that he's focusing on I just need to work hard. I need to do this because it's going to give him a solid foundation in which to build. But that mental game is really, really hard to conquer. And I do think it's a big thing for Rountree in order to see greatness, achieved. He needs to be able to tackle that mental dog going forward. What do you think is harder, Derek? The mental aspect or the actual physical game plan?
I'd agree with you. I think the mental aspect is so difficult because time flies by, when you're in there, you know what I'm saying? When you're doing any type of competition, time is just, what happened? We're over now? Okay, I just got started, you know what I mean? And that's the thing is you have to start quick if you're one of these guys, regardless. Bukauskas arguably should be 0-3 in his UFC tenure. His first fight against Andres Michailidis, listen, man, he was losing the fight. He ended up getting some nice elbows at the end of the first round. And then, the story, right, where they opened up the cage and Michailidis didn't know that the cage was open, so he fell back and then they called off the fight. I think that was wrong. That shouldn't have been there. But nonetheless, he got the win. Cool, whatever. So I think there's a lot on the line for Bukauskas here as well, mentally as well. His father is his head trainer, so he's going to be disciplined. He's got the tools to be able to really make some noise in this matchup. But Khalil Rountree Jr. is a very dangerous man, and if he has overcome some of those mental woes, man, you got to watch out if you're Bukauskas. Now let's actually talk about the matchup here, AJ. The one thing that I see being an X factor here is movement, and his lateral movement specifically. I think Bukauskas is not a stationary target, man. He uses a lot of that movement back and forth. I love how Khalil Rountree starts off the fight, very bouncy, ready to go, inside calf kick, very Muay Thai upright style, right? Half of that first round goes in and he starts turning stationary real quick. He still got the power. Rounds 1 through 3, the power is there, but he's a 1 punch, 2 punches max in his combos. How do you think that's going to affect him in this matchup against a Bukauskas, who is a volume guy, man? He'll throw a lot, you know what I'm saying? Every single fight, he's gotten better, and he's thrown more volume in each and every fight. But how do you think that stationary versus the lateral movement is going to play out in this matchup here?
Well, I'm glad you noted it, Derek, because that's exactly what I had from Modestas Bukauskas as well. His movement is on point, very slick, especially for 205. You don't see that too much around. What I like about Modestas Bukauskas is it doesn't just wane with each round going on. He stays moving the entire time, and he stays active. Now, with Khalil Rountree, you said it yourself, man, starts off very bouncy and starts to plot around. I think that's going to be a big X factor coming in, is the fact that Modestas Bukauskas is able to stay on that bike the entire time and really keep things at range. The one thing you don't want to do against Khalil Rountree is get inside where this dude can just lay down some absolute bombs on you, because he has, and at least in my opinion, he has the striking advantage as far as power and speed. Whereas Modestas Bukauskas, his lateral movement, even his head movement in general is a lot more on point and consistent throughout the entire thing. So I'm expecting definitely to have a big impact as far as movement goes for Modestas Bukauskas going forward. I think he's going to be able to stay on the outside, and even if he has to fight off the back foot, make it where he's able to come in and actually impose some threat off the movement instead of just staying inside, 2 feet in the tire and you guys swinging and banging until, bell to bell. I do think it's going to make a big impact going forward on the fight. What do you think, Derek?
Well, I think it'll make an impact the longer the fight goes. If this stays in within one round, all that movement don't matter, because if Rountree cracks you with a big one, you're going down. It don't matter who you are. But there's something that's really interesting about this in terms of both of these fighters' prospects, in terms of the matchmaking here, right? I do think that this is an opportunity where the matchmaking said, listen, both of y'all need to show something. Maybe we've given y'all some tough matchups, so what are we going to do? We're going to give you a clone of yourself, and whoever wins, you get to move on. Whoever loses, you get the boot. I honestly think that's what's going to happen. Excuse me. And I wanted to point this out really quickly. Let's talk significant strikes landed per minute. 3.7 at a 35% clip for Bukauskas, 3.06 at a 38% clip for Rountree Jr. Striking defense is 50% for Bukauskas, 49% for Rountree Jr. Takedown to average per 15 minutes, 0 a pop, man. So literally they're saying like, all right, man, may the best man win. This is the most favorable matchup that we could possibly give you. If you can't win at your own game, you don't belong here in the big show. Two dudes who are rough and rowdy, who are going to get after it. We will say that Khalil Rountree, he only has 9 fights, but he's been in the UFC for about 6 years, so he hasn't been the most active light heavyweight in the world. But nonetheless, man, he's fought he's fought way tougher competition than Bukauskas. So let's talk last fives real quick. Marcin Prachnio, Ian Kutsalaba, Eric Anders, Johnny Walker, and Gohan Saki for Khalil Rountree Jr. That's a hit list right there, right? And then if we're talking about Bukauskas, the last 3, we had Michailidis, Jimmy Crute, and Mikhail Alexichuk, man. Real tough guys too, but I think Rountree has the experience. He just needs to show up, man. So what's it going to be, AJ? Is it going to be Bangkok-ready Khalil Rountree, or is it going to be regular Warhorse Khalil Rountree? What do you think?
Man, I think I guess time will tell, but I definitely think it's going to be Bangkok ready, Khalil Rountree. He's had a couple rough outings, and that's the last. I mean, I think you said it best, Derek. This is one of those matchups where you're on the cutting block. You know, if you don't perform this one, you're back to the PFL. You're back to the minors, if you will. No disrespect to any of the other organizations, but I definitely think that's where it is. And that's the last thing you want, especially going in. You know, you got a couple L's on your record. This is the time to perform, and I think we're seeing Bangkok ready Khalil Rountree come out in this one. And you hit the nail on the head. This is fighting fire with fire, and I think it makes a great matchup going forward, man.
Absolutely, man. So it's going to be really, really fun to watch. I will say there is a difference in experience in terms of Bukauskas. He is a former Cage Warriors light heavyweight champ, man. I don't know if Khalil Rountree has ever held any championship status in the minors, you know, or in you know what I mean, the regional scene or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? No disrespect to none of these dudes, but I will say one thing that will play an important factor is that Rountree is a southpaw, and that inside calf kick, he's probably going to try to work it all day long. Bukauskas, he is getting better at checking kicks. He has a knack for checking kicks now, but ultimately at the end of the day here, man, Bukauskas, his volume drops when he's under pressure. Rountree's a pressure fighter. Hopefully we see some fireworks here. Give me your prediction on this fight, and once again, are we in consensus? Loser gets cut? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're in consensus on this one. I think loser gets cut. Asterisks on that. I think if Khalil Rountree loses, he's cut. 100% cut. He hasn't been performing as much. I think Modestas Bukauskas, if he loses this one, he gets one more shot, and then if he loses that one, he gets cut on that one. I do think this is a do or die match for both people, though, being in the fact that if this is a fight that Modestas Bukauskas loses, he's definitely on the prelims. He's 100% up and down. Whereas if, like I said, Khalil Rountree loses this one, he's getting cut. But personally, I think Bangkok ready is showing up. I got Khalil Rountree with a KO round 1. I don't think this one's going to go the distance by any means. If it does, we might be seeing Bukauskas with the dub on this one. But I'm going Khalil Rountree, Bangkok ready. He's going to have to change his nickname with this next one. He's getting the KO round 1. Who you think, Derek? Who's getting it done and why?
All right, man. So I'm contrasting again. I'm going Bukauskas here, man. I do think that the mental fortitude might not have been prepared in its entirety for Khalil Rountree Jr. Modestas Bukauskas sounds confident, man. He says he's been watching a lot of tape with his pops, saying they know what they need to do. They're comfortable now. They know they could throw certain techniques and whatnot. And I do think that I'm going to go very specific. So I think Bukauskas wins TKO round 2, but to be specific, TKO in like the latter half, like last minute of round 2, once Rountree really starts slowing down a little bit. Because we saw in the third round of his last fight, man, it was the huffing and puffing. It was the Like, okay, let's do it. And I'm not going to lie, his opponent, Marcin Prachnio, was exhausted, too, in that third round, man. But Bukauskas has a gas tank. His nickname is the Baltic Gladiator. He's the fighting pride for his people, for his country, man. And we'll just see. I just got to see which Rountree shows up, because last time I picked Rountree to beat Prachnio, and I got burned on that one. So maybe a little recency bias for me. Nonetheless, we can move on to the next one, man. Okay. So this is a very fun matchup, AJ, but I do have to take note that this is kind of complicated in the analysis, because going into this, I'm like, okay, this is a short notice fight for Alex Morono. David Zawada, he was the original opponent. He had another opponent who fell out. Morono comes in, he saves the day. But then I listened to some pre-fight talk and whatnot, and Morono's like, yeah, dude, I've had like an 8-week training camp. You know, I've been trying to like get in and just figure out an opponent, do whatever. It's been really, really long and tough on my body, but this worked in perfectly. I was able to just kind of fill in this spot. So people think it's short notice, but really I've been training this whole time. So I found that out after I placed my pick. Nonetheless, man, let's talk about it. Alex, the Great White Morono, is a -165 favorite against the spry +140 underdog David Zawada, aka Sagat. And I don't know if that is a Street Fighter reference or not, but I like it nonetheless, man. I will have to say this, AJ. We got two jiu-jitsu dudes who are about to go head-to-head. However, one has a different approach to his striking than the other, right? So would you argue right here, David Zawada is the more technical, more movement-based fighter. Morono, he's the definition of a pressure fighter who is trying to just swing and bang and take your head off with some hooks, man. I love Alex Morono for that, but I will say sometimes that gets him into trouble, especially when he fought Anthony Pettis just a couple of fights ago. Nonetheless, he got his last one. He's back on the win streak. He got the big win over Cerrone where he dismantled him in under a round. Very easy. And Zawada, they've been feeding him to the dogs, man. His last fight was against Ramazan Emeev, man. That is not a fun matchup to have for anybody if your goal is to want to strike and all that, because Emeev is just going to ragdoll you, throw you on the ground, and do all that, man. What do you think of this matchup, AJ? Who do you think on paper has the edge, knowing that this is a short notice bout for Morono? So even though he's been training, he hasn't specifically been training for Zawada. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like this matchup in general is probably the biggest sleeper matchup of the entire card, man. David Zawada hasn't really been getting the respect that he earns, and the fact that Alex Morono is coming in on short notice, it questions everybody, or it makes everybody question, excuse me. This one is crazy, because I agree with you, hit the nail on the head. I definitely think Zawada, he's more of the technician. He has very good pressure, he's very good striking, amazing ground game, and he's very much so A to B fighter. Whereas Alex Morono, man, homeboy's throwing heat. Definition of a pressure fighter, literally throwing heat left and right. And if he doesn't get you out of there, he's going to leave you with some lumps the next morning for sure. This one, man, this is one of those ones that I had a lot of trouble kind of getting my head wrapped around, especially just because it seems like neither fighter has been on their game, or at least dominating the fight game besides Alex Morono with the Cowboy Cerrone. And I didn't really take that fight into consideration as much as I should have, because I feel like Cerrone wasn't really in it on that one. He wasn't really the dog we're used to seeing. He was kind of like just out and about, like, oh yeah, man, like, that's neither here nor there. This matchup is going to be absolutely insane, because I think Morono is locked in, even though it's a short notice fight, man. He's been doing it at the big show since 2016, and he's really started to gain the eyes of the matchmakers in the crowd going forward. So I think this is a staple matchup for Alex Morono to actually make a name for himself in the division. Whereas Zawada, he hasn't been getting the respect, and he's able to actually make his name on a dude coming up with like Alex Morono. I definitely think this is one of those fights where we're going to see a lot of up and a lot of down. And if we get on the ground game going, we're going to see some technicians that aren't just laying and praying. We're going to see some people going for a finish on this one. How do you see this one playing out, Derek?
Oh, I see this just as a really just fun matchup overall, man. But I do have one gripe about Alex Morono that I think will take place in this matchup, is that he has a tendency of wanting to follow his opponents around, man. And he's such a skilled striker, but he still just kind of follows them around the ring instead of just taking that extra step laterally to just cut off that cage, get those hooks going, lead them to the right side so he can land the big right hook. There's not too much of that. However, he kind of supplements that by implementing a very strong wrestling heavy game, man. So his jiu-jitsu, he's a second degree BJJ black belt. and his wrestling is really good. So I think he has the wrestling advantage here. I've yet to see the BJJ chops because I think Zawada is very, very skilled. And I know, AJ, I know you're high on Zawada because I'm pretty sure you made him one of your sleepers a couple of weeks back, last time that he fought or whatever the case may be. Nonetheless, both of these dudes are former regional champs. Zawada, he's a multiple-time regional champ. Morono, he's a former LFC welterweight champion, Taekwondo black belt, all the good stuff, man. He strikes at a much higher clip than Zawada does, but he's a little, and he's a little more accurate, which is interesting. 42% to 40% for Zawada, man. My question to you right here, AJ, on this one is, because first off, I see this fight, like I said, being fun and all that, but why don't you think Zawada gets the respect that he deserves? Like, what exactly is it about that, man? This is a dude, he used to fight in a KS1 or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Or KSW, whatever it is. What do you think?
It's crazy because to me, Zawada, and you're right, I did have him as a sleeper before. I am high on this guy, especially because his wrestling is very, very good, top notch. He's always down for a war. And I like about him is he throws everything down the pipe. I'm not really sure why a lot of people aren't big on Zawada. I definitely think it could be a regional thing. It could be since he's from Germany. We're not used to seeing that many Germans come in and kind of take over the scene so much so. Like we've seen Khalid Taha, same thing with him. Big on, and I was big on Khalid Taha, came up and started to really fall short. Same thing with David Zawada, excuse me. He came in, man, fighting Jing Liang Li, whatever, how you say that exact one, Abubakar Nurmagomedov, and then Ramazan Amir, bro, he was been absolutely fed to the dogs and hasn't really performed as great as he was in the regional scene. So I think that's why a lot of people are really starting to overlook Zawada and just think, oh, he's just a gatekeeper. Or not necessarily a gatekeeper, but he's one of those C-level fighters, B-level fighters, where in the UFC and everyone's that S tier, it's hard to really be those lower level of fighters. I don't think that's true about Zawada, though. I definitely think it was much more of a... Could have even been a mental thing for him because I've seen a lot of his fights where he's really performed top level elite game and he stays calm. Whereas so much so with Alex Moreno, man, he'll see red and he'll start swinging for the fences. That's why we love Alex Moreno. Yeah. It could be a bias of technicians where people like to see brawls, whereas Zawada is much more of a composer, much more of a composed fighter, going to keep everything calm. It could be a couple different things. Like I said, it's why he's being overlooked. What do you think it is, Derek?
Well, I think that you hit it nail on the head right there when you're talking about this German dude comes over. He has very little charisma, especially speaking in English. Like, they ask him, he was all like, basically, what do you think you're going to win this? And he was all like, yeah, I'm going to win. And just leaves it at that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, not really hyping it up, not being excited for it. I'm not going to lie. It made me a little nervous because I'm just like, okay, I picked this dude. Then I listened to the interviews and whatnot. I'm like, sound confident, bro. Like, you're making me doubt you in this pick because we know Morono, he's game, he's confident, and he's got the X factor of having the coach called Saif Saud fighting out of Fortis MMA, man. So that's another really, really big one there. I will say this, man. I want to ask you, what's more surprising? Is it more surprising that we talk about Zawada as a grappling dude, a jiu-jitsu dude, all that good stuff, but he has less fights than Alex Morono, and he actually has, 5 more knockouts than Alex Morono. And we're talking about Morono being the big puncher, right? So when we're talking about knockouts, 19-7 is Morono, 6 knockouts, 6 submissions, 6 decisions. That's the dreaded 666 right there, man. I don't know if that's an omen or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But we'll put that out there. For David Zawada, 17-6, 11 knockouts, 4 submissions, 2 decisions. What does that mean to you?
I think it is, to answer your first question, I do think it is surprising when you think of it like, oh, Alex Morono, the dog, versus David Zawada, the technician. It's kind of crazy to think like, oh, man, Zawada has more knockouts. But what's the fastest way to get a knockout, Derek? It's the fastest way to travel as well, A to B. And that's what Zawada has. He also has the timing. So it definitely, on second thought, isn't that surprising to me. But the fact that Zawada is getting it done a lot more by finish instead of having more fights like Alex Morono, it just means to me that Morono is able to get it done in a lot of different ways. Like you said, the 666, but Zawada is able to stay a little bit more calm, a little bit more composed, and stay to the game plan. And really, especially thinking about it now with Alex Morono, his game plan can go out the door and he can start seeing red, and that's why we love him. What does all that mean to you, Derek? Do you see it the same or you see something a little different?
Well, I'm really I'm really like glad to see Alex Morono can get it done regardless of how it goes down. To me, that speaks experience, poise, you know what I mean, mental fortitude. For Zawada, it's actually surprising because it goes to show it's like, all right, yeah, you can get it done in all these different ways, but when you start banking on the knockout, you know what I mean, we see how that goes time and time again. Okay, well, if you can't get it, what are you going to do? You're going to resort to the grappling? Well, we know he's probably best in his grappling off of his back, and that's not a position you really want to be in mixed martial arts, you know what I'm saying? At least not strategically, like wanting to pull guard. We don't want to do that in MMA. And I do want to kind of highlight, man, in his last win, which is against Abubakar Nurmagomedov, right? He pulled from bottom, had great hips, man. He was getting smothered on top, and then he ended up pulling an arm bar out of nowhere, and then it turned into like a triangle choke or something like that, man. But I will have to say this. I don't know, AJ, and this is some of the flack that people have put on Abubakar specifically. I don't know if that was a synced in, real deal, all right, bro, I can't breathe, or if it was a fatigue, I quit tap. And that's the thing. That's people's criticism on Abubakar Nurmagomedov. So then it makes you think, okay, we know the last name Nurmagomedov means so much in this sport, right? So maybe I'm putting a little too much that he was able to submit that man, even though it's not like he was able to submit Khabib, you know, we're not talking about the same guy. Do you think that kind of plays into it right there?
I think if you've ever been in there doing it and you're criticizing somebody for tapping for exhaustion, I'll say it like this: if you're criticizing somebody for tapping out of exhaustion, you've never been in there and done it before, because that's 90% of the taps. Man, you're just like, I'm good, brother. I'm tired. This is too much for me. I don't play too much into that one as far as that, because David Zawada, he did have a very nice triangle choke locked in. And, you know, when the world's closing down and that tunnel starts to creep in, man, it's hard to not just, all right, brother, let me out. Like, it's very hard. So,
yeah, I just think it was just a tiny bit of a quick tap for Nurmagomedov. Nonetheless, man, we're not talking about him. We're talking about Morono and Zawada, and I do think that this is going to be a story of the winging hooks versus the straight shots. So with that being said, give me your pick and why, AJ.
No, I agree with you, Derek. I do think this is going to be the story of A to B versus a round for C. And this one's honestly a very hard call for me. Like you said before, I'm very high on David Zawada going forward, man. Both fighters are very talented, but me personally, I think we're in for a grudge match, man. I think we're in for an absolute war. I'm going Alex Morono by decision. I know he's on the short notice fight, but he does a gas tank and he's an absolute dog. I think we're in for an exciting fight. I got Alex Morono by decision. Who you got and why, Derek?
All right, man. I am rocking with Deutschland this time around. We going David Zawada, man. I think I picked against him in his last fight, and rightly so, right? Because, I mean, he lost his last fight. But nonetheless, I think the man is going to be game. I think that the jiu-jitsu is going to be really high level. But I honestly think his jab, his straight shot is going to be the key to victory right there. That and the mobility. And as long as he doesn't get content just sitting on his back trying to fight out of his guard, I think we're going to have a really, really fun fight on our hands right here. And he gets to finally show who he is to the UFC people, man, fighting in America. I think this is a big honor for a lot of people that are coming from international places, fighting in Las Vegas, the fight capital of the world. What are we talking about, right? So I'm rocking with David Zawada, and I do think that this will go to a decision for a Zawada win. Could be split, could be majority, doesn't matter. I see it going for David Zawada on this one, my man. So, folks, I don't know if you noticed, man, but we got contrasting picks 3 in a row, you know what I'm saying? So that's the story of the night so far. May the best man win. Let's move on to the co-main, AJ, because, listen, man, I have to say, Tom Aspinall, he's one of our favorite fighters on this platform. We are proud to say it. We are biased. We know that, but we're trying to be objective going into this one because we got the number 13th ranked Tom Aspinall, who opens up as a minus 250 favorite against the Polar Bear, plus 210. Number 14 ranked Serghei Spivac, man. Now, Tom Aspinall has openly said, listen, man, I'm fighting the most boring dude on the roster right now. However, just because you're boring, and this is foreshadowing to the main event, doesn't mean you can't rack up wins. You know what I'm saying? So Serghei Spivac hasn't been the most impressive in terms of flashy, style, all that. But I will say this, man, if he takes your back, if he gets you on the ground, it's going to be really, really tough to get him off of there, man. And even though Tom Aspinall is a big boy in and of himself, listen, this is still a very intriguing matchup, I believe, AJ. So really quickly, I just want to pull up because Tom Aspinall, his original opponent was Serghei Pavlovich, which was going to be really good because this would have bumped him up the ranking substantially. I think maybe 5 or 6 spots if he would have got the win. Nonetheless, the fight's not taking place, and this is what we got. So, AJ, man, this is one of your favorite fighters, I know. So set the table on this. What do you like about Tom Aspinall in this matchup? I'll talk about Serghei Spivac.
Man, like you said, Derek, I really like Tom Aspinall because he's one of those new heavyweights, one of the hybrids we've been seeing coming into the game, bro. Homeboy is fast, he's strong, and he stays very, very calm in the fight. We know, he absolutely in his last fight put it to Andre Arlovski, and we've seen Andre Arlovski absolutely hold his water for the last couple fights he's had after this one. And he's really what I like about Tom Aspinall is he's able to get it done in the hands, but his ground game is so smooth that nobody talks about it. He's literally the definition of a killer wherever it's going to be standing up or down. His dad is his head coach, but he's also fighting a very smart game. If he sees an opening, he takes it. He doesn't just want to stand and bang. He doesn't just want to go to the ground. He can go wherever the fight goes. But that being said, man, the worst way to lose a fight is to a boring fighter. Ask all the people that have lost the last one to our main event fighters, but we'll get to that in a minute. And I really like Tom Aspinall, like I said, because he's fast. He's that heavyweight that's able to move and groove, and he's able to play the different game however it needs to be played and get the win however it comes. Very dangerous, and he's been doing it long enough that he knows how to use his talents. Like I said, with the Arlovski fight, it was great, man. The hands were up there. They were battling back and forth, and Arlovski gave his back for about 0.2 seconds, put his arm down. That arm went right underneath the chin, got the tap out, and you even saw Arlovski just at the end of it let out a big F-bomb just because he knew. He's like, damn, that was so quick. I didn't even have anything to do. What one aspect, though, that I do is it raises a little bit of concern for Tom Aspinall. He likes to pull the Dusko, and he likes to actually pull his head back when the punches start winging, which it looks very flashy when you're talented enough to get it done, like Izzy Adesanya or a lot of the other fighters. You're able to do that. It looks really cool, and it ends a lot of style points, but all you need is that one extra half inch for Serghei Spivac to land. Lights out, hits that button, you're going to sleep. And like I said, you don't want to be doing that against a quote-unquote boring fighter. That's the worst one you want, man. But hit me with the Spivac. What are you taking notes on him for?
Well, first, man, yeah, Aspinall needs to be careful because Arlovski was this close from taking his damn head off, man, doing that. Dude, it's funny, right? We can literally, if you're a fan of this show, you know what the Dusko is, man. That's the chin sky high in the air, hands down, man. And believe it or not, Tom Aspinall has a 1-0 record as a professional boxer with one knockout, man. So you think the boxer wouldn't do that? No, come on, get down, come on. You know what I'm saying? Head off the center line. Nonetheless, man, Serghei Spivac, man, he is a flat-footed striker, but don't let that fool you, man, because he's willing to get in these boxing exchanges. He does have a little tough time against these faster, more mobile heavyweights that got these really quick hands. And even though Tom Aspinall fits that build, Tom Aspinall is actually the bigger man in this one. Spivac is 6'3", Tom Aspinall, is 6'5". And when we're talking about reach, equal reach across the board, man. So I think that if they do get into some trading combinations, man, Aspinall, he has a lot of power, got the quicker hands, but Spivac, he's going to turn that big right hand or that big combination one or two at a time. These are heavyweights, don't get me wrong, you know what I'm saying? He's going to turn that combination into some type of trip, into some type of push against the fence to try to just get that body lock, get you to the ground, and keep you there the entire fight. He does not care if it is a boring fight because guess what, man? You're getting your face smashed in, and you better stay on point the entire time because he's looking to submit you. So the man has 5 knockouts, 6 submissions, 2 decisions. He's been able to get it done all of the ways across the board. The man has only been knocked out once, and he's only been submitted, or he's never been submitted, actually. So that goes to show how dominant of a ground game that we have. Serghei Spivac off his back, we don't want to see that. So if Tom Aspinall can get him there, that might be an X factor, but if he reverses the position, man, how about we just don't keep it there in general? I think that's going to be the game plan for Tom Aspinall. He's going to want to just box him up. But Serghei Spivac, like I said, don't get him wrong, man. He doesn't throw as much, but he's accurate and he's efficient. So AJ, I wanted to ask you about that specifically. What is more impressive? I already know the answer to this, but it's both impressive in its own right. Tom Aspinall, he's been demolishing everybody, man. Dude looks like a superstar, but he hasn't fought the highest level opponents as in relation to, Andre Arlovski. Besides that, take the rest out, man. It hasn't been the highest level opponents, right? So Tom Aspinall strikes 7.43 significant strikes landed per minute at a 66% clip, which is absolutely fucking ridiculous, right? Serghei Spivac, the polar bear, the person that we know is the most boring fighter in the world that is just going to sit there and grapple, right? 3.85 significant strikes landed per minute, at a 50% clip. That's very efficient, man. That is very, very efficient right there. So I know both of them are very impressive, man, but what do you take out of that?
Honestly, I think the Spivac the Spivac stat is more impressive to me because he's able to stay consistent, man. When you're only throwing 3 significant strikes the round or the minute, excuse me, but you're landing at a 50% clip. You're not wasting shots. You're not wasting, energy going forward. Whereas Tom Aspinall, that can be a thing going, to the second and the third round. He stays mobile the entire time. Don't get me wrong, but his feet do start to slow down a little bit. The punches start to slow down. The power stays there, so he's fine there. But what impressed me most about the Spivac thing, man, is he always is there for a fight. He's always a dog in the fight. He's never going to back down. And we even saw in his last fight against Alexei Olenek, he was there. He was cracking Olenek on the top of the head. Olenek was dipping down and hitting him with the headbutt, trying to break his hand. But man, that did not stop Serghei Spivac at all. He kept thudding him, and then arguably he out-grappled Alexei Olenek, which is absolutely crazy, man, when you're able to out-grapple, and maybe not in the first round. Definitely the second and the third, it started to go to Spivac's way, and we started to see that quote-unquote boring fighter come out. But to me, man, there's nothing more, and we've said it a lot in the show, speed beats power or timing beats speed, all that stuff. But if you're with Serghei Spivac and he's able to keep consistently popping that jab and popping those strikes that are hurting you consistently time and time again, it makes it a bigger outcome than if you're landing 4 or 5 different of those power strikes, but you're only able to do it once every 3 minutes, once every 2 minutes and stuff like that. So it's a little more impressive to me that Spivac's like that. But again, he is very unassuming, and a lot of people aren't scared of this dude. That's kind of the big X factor for me is Tom Aspinall isn't scared of Serghei Spivac. Most people aren't really scared of him because, like you said, he is more so that slow, boring fighter. But don't get it wrong, homeboy is an absolute dog, and he keeps it reserved, which I like about him, man. He stays real reserved, and he's able to pull it out whenever he needs to. Pause. But yeah, what do you think, Derek, going forward, man?
Right on the money right there, you know what I'm saying? But I will say, listen, man, that I agree with basically everything that you said, and Tom Aspinall is absolutely not scared of this, man. He even said, he was like, in the beginning of my UFC career, I actually called him out a couple times, man, and it just never really worked out. Like, Spivac never even really responded, you know what I mean? Like, it's nothing personal. He was like, I just thought the fight made sense. So now that this is actually taking place here, and Tom Aspinall is probably overlooking Serghei Spivac, I think that's where it gets dangerous, because Spivac is just like, all right, man, go ahead, overlook me. I just beat Olenek, coming off a win against Jared Vanderaa. I beat Carlos Felipe. I lost to Marcin Tybura. All right, that's the one dude who has been having this miraculous run in the heavyweight division. But he also submitted Tai Tuivasa, who we know is a very, very tough man right there, man. So the wins that Tom Aspinall has, Jake Collier, who is a former middleweight turned heavyweight, not really as impressive. Alan Boudreaux, impressive, but not really as of late because he's been losing some of his fights, you know what I'm saying? And then Andre Arlovski, that's the big one because he becomes, I believe, either the first or the second man to ever submit Andre Arlovski, which is super duper impressive. So the big thing that I got to take away here is Tom Aspinall is a BJJ black belt, and his striking is so good that's why the takedowns and the submissions are so effective, in my opinion, because you have to worry so much about the hands. And lastly, just to make sense of that kind of bloated significant strikes landed per minute stat that he has at 7.43 at a 66% clip, you'll notice when he gets you hurt and he gets you up against the cage and you start shelling up, he lets the hands go, man. And that's a little bit of a problem, though, because what happens when somebody lets it go back and they just hit you with that one because you're just so worried about getting the windmill on, getting them flurries going, straight up like a kind of like a boxing, type situation right there. But nonetheless, man, this is going to be a really, really interesting bout in terms of where these fighters go, because you see number 13 versus number 14, man, both of these dudes could take a big jump. And right now, Aspinall's on a 6-fight win streak, Spivac 3-fight win streak. It's going to be impressive, man. Who do you have and why?
Yeah, this one's going to be a really fun fight, Derek, going forward. I'm rocking with Tom Aspinall on this one. I think he's getting it done. KO round 2. He's going to get it done in spectacular fashion. But don't be surprised if Spivac gets it done in this one, man. He's very unassuming and he very much is a dog. But like I said, I'm going Tom Aspinall, KO round 2. Who you got and why?
Even though I believe in the prospect known as, or not the prospect, the contender. He's ranked. He's top 15. Serghei Spivac, even though I believe in the polar bear and I believe in his abilities and his capacities and his capabilities, I really believe in Tom Aspinall, man. And this is the one where I'm going to have to go with you right there. Except I'm going to go TKO round 3 for Tom Aspinall. I think it's going to be really difficult to get Spivac out of there, but I think come the end of the fight, the quickness of Tom Aspinall will be there all 3 rounds. And I think whether it's a submission, that'll be very difficult, but whether it's a submission or it's just on the hands, if he wants to box him up, I think that's the best approach. So I'm going Tom Tom Aspinall, TKO round 3, minus 250 favorite, man. So there's a lot of pressure on the man. And I don't want to say it's a live dog for Spivac because I wouldn't really take it that far, but I do think this is one that if you just had a little bit of cash you wanted to throw on Spivac, man, it's a dart throw. It's a lottery ticket, but it might just get the job done, man. I think we saw a pretty sneaky upset in last week's card too, man. It was kind of similar to this. So big fight in the heavyweight division, man, between two dudes who, I mean, really, they were just prospects literally like a year ago, right? So it's crazy. Things happen just like that, man. So if you're inactive, you get left behind in this game, man. So move on to the main event, AJ. Derek Brunson, blonde Brunson. If he is blonde going into this fight, he's currently blonde right now. So in case something miraculous happens, man, Darren Till got a tough test on his hands, clearly, right? So number 5, Derek Brunson. He's a plus 150 underdog against the minus 185 favorite in number 9 ranked Darren the Gorilla Till. Now, Darren Till has been one of my favorite fighters since he's come into the UFC, AJ. But I have to say, off the bat, alert right here, folks. If you listen in, stop what you're doing, head over to your local gambling, website, or you go to your local bookie and go put some money on Derek Brunson because this line is outrageous. This is outrageous. It should be flipped. It should be minus 185 Brunson, plus 150 Darren Till. However, people really believe in Darren Till, his striking capacities, coming off the collarbone injury. And listen, man, he lost his last fight to Robert Whittaker, but it was still close. It was a very technical contest. Big win over Kelvin Gastelum. Back-to-back losses against T. Wood, Mr. Albicho ass, who was beaten. Now we're going on like super 0 asses. It's been like 5 fights. 0 asses have been beaten, nonetheless. And game-bred Jorge Masvidal. His last win after Gastelum was Wonder Boy, man. So it's like he has the spurts where he can do it, and then he doesn't do it, and then he can do it. Nonetheless, Derek Brunson, man, he's been on a hell of a run. Kevin Holland, Edmund Shabazian, Ian Heinich, I can't pronounce homeboy's name, so I'm going to skip it. Last loss was to Israel Adesanya, man. So this feels very Marvin Vettori-esque to me, does it not? Oh,
very much so, Derek. Yeah, it's I'm with you 100%. I definitely think this one's going to be very, very interesting going forward, man. I agree. The line should be flipped for sure, though. I definitely think this is a recency bias going forward for Darren Till. I'm interested to see how Till brings it out, man. With the shoulder injury, the collarbone injury, and him being an up and down fighter, I think he was expected to do a lot better going forward. But we're going to see the dog come out in this one, I think.
I think so too, man. So what's interesting here is that Darren Till, if he keeps it on the feet, man, he has a very, very good chance of winning the fight. But we said the same thing for Edmund Shabazian and the same thing for Kevin Holland. Now, neither of those dudes are on the same level as Darren Till, in my opinion, because Darren Till, the thing about this is that, he's been very reckless at times in his career, right? But this time around, it seems like he's really respecting Brunson, and he's taking him very, very seriously. He's taking him as a very game opponent. So the 22-7 Derek Brunson, who has wins over Uriah Hall, Lyoto Machida, Chris Lieben, Kevin Holland, Ian Heinich, all these people who I just mentioned, man. Like, the dude can get it done. I know he looks like Crash Bandicoot with his build. He got a funny build, but he has success in the cage, and I've come to terms with it, AJ. Doesn't matter how boring you fight, a win is a win is a win. And listen, man, if I'm putting money on it, I'm putting money on Derek Brunson on this one, regardless if you think he's going to win or lose, just because the odds are very high that he gets the job done. Now, let me ask you this, man. BJJ black belt is Derek Brunson. Former NCAA D2 wrestler, All-American wrestler out of the state of North Carolina is Derek Brunson. Do you think he will be able to get Darren Till to the ground? And if he does, do you think he'll be able to keep him there? Because I think that's the big question we're all asking here. Some people think Till is just going to keep it on the feet the whole time. Some people think Brunson to keep it on the ground the whole time. I think it'll be a healthy mixture of both. What do you think?
I agree. I think it's going to be a healthy mixture of both going forward for this one. I do think Derek Brunson's going to be able to get Till down. I was saying before with Derek Brunson's last match where he's not going to be able to keep Kevin Holland down. He's not going to be able to get Kevin Holland down, or even Edmund Shabazian as well. And even Heinisch fight after that, man, it makes this pick a little easier on this one. The fact that he will be able to get Darren Till down, but I don't think he's going to be able to keep Till down. I think Till has had a long time to be able to work that. We all know, even if you're a fan of the sport, if you're casual or not, you know Derek Brunson's game plan. He's going to be shooting for a double leg. He's going to be trying to get this one to the ground. He's going to be humping and praying all night long for that decision win. And I think Darren Till also knows it, and he's going to be able to at least get taken down, but able to stand back up. We saw that in the Tyron Woodley fight or any of Darren Till's matches. He's not the best on the ground, but he is very, very talented, but he just likes to swing and bang a little bit better. He may not be, the cream of the crop on the jiu-jitsu or on the mat, but he is very, very talented. And I don't think he's going to be able to or he's not going to be held down by Derek Brunson. Whereas Derek Brunson, that's his goal the entire time, man. Just hold this dude down, beat him up, position over submission. Whereas Darren Till, he's able to work those funky submissions going back and forth. We haven't seen it lately, but I do think that once that butt hits the mat, Darren Till will be able to stand up after that. What do you think, Derek? Will be able to keep him down, or is Derek Brunson going to be laying and praying to the victory on this one?
Well, I think that it's going to be one of those situations where if he's not able to keep him down, he's going to keep taking him down time and time and time again. And the reason why is something I noticed in film study, man. So we know that Darren Till is a big middleweight, right? We know that. Even though he started his UFC tenure off as a welterweight, he is a big, beefy dude, you know what I'm saying? And we're talking about height. 6'1" is Derek Brunson, 6 foot is Darren Till. So he's right there. He's matching him, you know what I'm saying? He's thick. However, in his fight against Kelvin Gastelum, who has notoriously been a tweener between the middleweight and the welterweight divisions, right? He's not really a welterweight, can't really make the weight. He's a very small middleweight. But what did we see in the beginning of that fight? Basically throughout the whole entire fight. Kelvin Gastelum was able to get underhooks on Darren Till so easily. And that's the first thing they teach you in jiu-jitsu class, man. If you grab the underhook, you have the leverage, use your head for the positioning, and you can just toss him to the ground. If you don't want to toss him to the ground, you got the double underhooks, close your hands together, you got the body lock, toss him to the ground. Derek Brunson is so skilled at doing that, and if Darren Till just allows him to do that, I think it's going to be a long night because he's going to go back to it time and time and time again. And he's done it against other opponents. He's done it against more skilled opponents in terms of grappling and wrestling than Darren Till. I do think, though, one thing about Darren Till, though, AJ, that is the X factor here is the mental, you know what I mean? The mental game. I think that Darren Till might pull out some gorilla craziness. He cut like a crazy Mike Tyson promo on the Ariel Helwani MMA Hour, and he was just saying, he was like, listen, man, like, I don't care. I'll take 1,000,000 losses to get to where I need to go, but I'm going to get it, and I'm going to go and do all that crazy stuff, you know what I mean? And I just think that might play a little X factor here because I do think that Darren Till is more mentally tough than Derek Brunson is. However, it feels like Brunson is coming to his own, man. He's accepted his fight style, he's accepted who he is, and he does not give a damn about what anybody says about it, because guess what? He says none of this stuff is personal. Kevin Holland, it was personal, because Kevin Holland was talking some trash that was a little, across the line and whatnot. He said for all this other stuff, it's just business, man, and if I get the win, I'm looking for that rematch against the winner of Izzy versus Whitaker, you know what I'm saying? So, that's like, we know that. And we know that this is a Southpaw versus Southpaw matchup, man. So that makes it really interesting too, man. But do you think, this is what I wanted to ask you earlier, do you think that the same predictable nature of Derek Brunson's game where you want to take him down and do all that, doesn't that apply to Darren Till as well? We know he wants the 1-2. We know that big left hand is what he's searching for. Time and time after again, it'll be a jab, left hand, right? And I think that's part of his downfall, is that's a little predictable, man. You know what I'm saying? He rarely follows up on it. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because you're going to revert back to what's most comfortable. And if you're throwing that, like you said, you're throwing that jab left hand each time and it's working and you're seeing results for it, but you train it out of it. You're training, okay, I'm going to hit him with a 1-3. I'm going to do something different this one. But then the punches start flying, the adrenaline starts pumping, and you go back to your habits. So I do think that we're going to see the habits come out to play in this one, kind of almost a predictable fight for both sides. But there's one thing you said in the earlier segment right before this, that if Darren Till accepts Derek Brunson's fight style of accepting the underhooks, accepting the ground game, accepting that you're going to get taken down, I think that's where the fault is going to lie, because that's exactly what happened with Kevin Holland. He accepted the fact that Derek Brunson was going to take him down. I'm going to have to fight this ground game. I'm just going to have to do it. But if you don't accept that and you keep things standing, you keep things unexpected, then I think that's where really we're going to see Derek Brunson start to falter. That's the big X factor for Darren Till, at least coming from my camp. The fact that if he's able to do something unexpected and keep people guessing and keep not just hit him with that 1-2, but hit him with the 1, 2, 3, 4, hit him, those combos keep coming, throw a high kick out of nowhere. That's where we're really going to see Derek Brunson start to falter and kind of start to get in his own mind going forward for this one. I definitely think, though, once it's hard to not fall back into your own quirks and your own things that have just been trained since, they've been 8, 9, 10 years old fighting on the streets, that they're able to just get away from that. That's a huge step, and it's a hard thing to ask somebody to do, to not do the things that's comfortable to you. So I do think we're going to see a more so predictable fight coming from both of these fighters. What do you think, Derek?
I think that it's going to be a contrast to styles, man, and experience is probably going to rule out in this one. Experience will probably get the job done, and the one detriment for Darren Till that comes time and time again that I really think has been the big issue is that he's patient. He's sometimes too patient, right? Significant strikes landed per minute, 2.27 at a 46% clip. For Derek Brunson, who is not the biggest striker in the world, you know what I'm saying? He doesn't really even take a shot very well. He just relies on that experience to be able to grab hold of you once he does get rocked. 3.46 significant strikes landed per minute at a 47% clip, man. So I think that Darren Till is going to have to be a little high on the volume if he wants to get the job done, especially if some takedowns start racking up for Derek Brunson, man. But I wanted to ask you this before we give our pick. Both of these fighters are 2-time Fight of the Night winners and 1-time Performance of the Night winners. What's more likely, Performance of the Night or Fight of the Night in this one?
Ooh, I think this one's more likely to be a Performance of the Night. I think if we are going to see this one go out, or either way, we're going to see a one-sided fight on this one. Whether it be the takedowns of Derek Brunson or whether it be the standing performance of Darren Till, I think we're going to see a Performance of the Night for either camp and not necessarily the dog fights, we would be seeing for a Fight of the Night. What do you think?
I think that is surprising to see Fight of the Night written next to Derek Brunson's name personally, but I'm going to go Performance of the Night, man. I think it's either going to be a stunning knockout or it's going to be a decision that's just a grueling, dominant decision. And, sometimes Dana White, he will reprimand his fighters by not even putting out a Fight of the Night at all. He'll just give a couple bonuses out, be like, y'all didn't even deserve Fight of the Night because all these fights fucking sucked, you know what I mean? Not sucked, don't get me wrong, but he can be kind of harsh on that one, man. But I do think that there's big implications on this one. So the last and final question I have for you. If Darren Till loses this fight, he would officially be 1-4 in his last 5. If Derek Brunson loses this fight, he would be 3-2 in his last 5, man. So clearly back against the wall situation for Darren Till. I don't see the man getting cut after a loss personally. I think he's too big of a star, you know what I mean? He has such international traction for the fan base. Nonetheless, man, I mean, pressure is on clearly on Darren Till, right?
Oh, yeah, I think very much so. The pressure is on Darren Till a lot more than Derek Brunson. And I agree with you. I don't think either of these fighters are going to get cut. I do think, though, with the loss for either one of these guys, we're going to start seeing them a lot lower on the card. And if you follow Uncle Chael, that's almost worse. That's almost worse than getting cut, So, yeah, the pressure for sure is on Darren Till on this one, and I definitely think he's gonna own up to it. He's been out of the game for quite a while, so I think we're gonna see a resurgence of Darren Till coming in this one. And I'm honestly just hoping we don't see a hump fest all night long, man.
Well, I mean, get ready for it. It's probably going to happen. You know what I'm saying? But even if it's just like fighting up against the cage, clinching back and forth, man, I'll tell you what, X factor here, AJ, underhooks. Whoever can establish the underhooks on this one is going to have some success, man. So give me your pick and why, AJ.
Yeah, I'm going Darren Till, KO, round 1. I think he's going to get it done. At least that's what I'm hoping for. I could easily see Derek Brunson getting it done the other way, man, because he is on an absolute roll. So don't be surprised. Go throw some money down on that massive 150-point underdog. It's definitely a live dog on that one. But me, personally, I'm running with the gorilla. Darren Till, KO, round 1. Who you got and why, Derek?
So this is the one where, like I said, you know what I mean? Just like Tom Aspinall, I mean, Darren Till and Tom Aspinall train out of the same gym, so shout out to that, man. But I'm biased on this one, and I had to put my bias aside, and I had to go objective. I picked against Brunson a million times in the past. I'm not going to do it again this time. I'm going Blonde Brunson with the decision victory, man. Blonde Brunson has now become some mythical fighter at this point, you know what I mean? Like, this dude's reached legendary status, So as long as he can keep the control, get the underhooks, man, I think it's going to be a long night at the office for Darren Till. However, Till has the one-shot KO power he always has. And listen, I'm a huge fan of Darren Till, but I got to go Derek Brunson with the decision win, folks. So that is the main card, folks, man. It's going to be a concise 10 bouts, and then we get a couple of weeks off. We're going to have Dana White Contender Series and all that, but we get a couple of weeks off before the next big card. So, AJ, we got one last piece of business, big dog. But before I say that, drop a like. Subscribe. Come on, folks. We're putting it out. We almost at 200 subscribers. So if you're over there and you're peeping us out on YouTube, man, just click the button, hit the yellow notification icon so you know when we drop an episode each and every week, Mondays and Fridays, 8 a.m. It's easy to hear it, man, but we also got a bunch of short clips that we put out. So if you don't care about the whole long spiel, the hour-long episode, that's fine. Just tune into the Derek Brunson versus Darren Till bout, or just tune into the, you know what I'm saying, whatever the case may be, just the sleepers, everything. We got it curated for you, ready to go. So with that being said, AJ, one last piece of business. Fight of the night, man. This is a big task on our hands, right? Because we try to predict it each and every week. What's going to be fight of the night? Sometimes we hit it nail on the head. Sometimes it's super unexpected, and this came out of nowhere, man. But there are so many places you can go, even though we have a concise card here. Who is your pick for fight of the night for UFC Vegas 36?
My pick of fight of the night, Derek, is it's gonna be a crazy one. I said it before. It's almost a sleeper of the event, but this one has some serious game coming forward, man. I got David Zawada versus Alex Morono on this one. I think it's gonna be an absolute banger of a fight. Anytime you got Morono in there, he's gonna be going for the killer shots. And I think this one with David Zawada, he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, expecting to come out swinging and banging. This one's gonna be a lot of fun. My fight of the night pick is David Zawada versus Alex Morono. What about you, Derek?
All right, man. So I had a tough time because there were two matchups that really stood out to me on the prelims, and I'm like, either one of these could be fight of the night. But the reason why I'm going with the one I'm going for is because the other one that I had slated, I think it's going to end out in a knockout. And if it ends up in a knockout or any type of stoppage, you do not earn fight of the night honors. It just doesn't work that way. You get the performance bonus, So I'm going to go Juicy J. Julian Erosa, man, versus Air Charles Jourdain, man. This is going to be, you cannot talk about Charles Jourdain and not talk about some type of performance bonus. Like, this dude, he will do the Showtime hammer fist where he jumps off the cage and smacks a hammer fist on his opponent, damn near like on some Michel Paeta where he does a backflip onto his opponent to get into side control. Like, who does that? But I love to see it, man. It's entertainment. It's flashy. But Juicy J is coming off of a brutal knockout, man, in his last fight. And he's going to have to do something, man, to get on the right end of the stick on this one, man. So I think it's going to be fight of the night. I think it's going to be a very entertaining back and forth battle. And this is only the third fight on the prelims, folks. So it's like, come on, man. This is a fun card, man. So with that being said, AJ, that's the fight of the night. All the good stuff, man. And listen, folks. Once again, subscribe, all the good stuff. I hope you enjoy us as much as we've been enjoying doing this for you guys each and every week. Believe it or not, AJ, I just talked about it. We just hit 70, 75, all that. We episode 77. We on the track, on the road to 100 episodes, man. And believe it or not, AJ, man, listen, we just started doing it. It's only been like a year and a couple months, man. It hasn't been that long. So great trekking along, all that good stuff. And AJ, we just got a couple of minutes really quickly, and I just wanted to pick your brain really quickly on this one, man. Obviously, tough 29 Ultimate Fighter, it is over, it is done. Ricky Torcios is our bantamweight champ. Brian Battle is the middleweight champ. Great, all that good stuff. We're past that. Now it's Dana White Contender Series. AJ, I want to ask you, there's been arguments over here where people are saying that the UFC roster is going to get too bloated and that it's going to get watered down because Dana White is handing out 2, 3, 4, 5 contracts, you know what I mean, every single week. What do you think about the Dana White's Contender Series as a, just in theory, right? What do you think about it and what it does for the UFC? And lastly, do you agree with that sentiment? Do you think the UFC can have too large of a roster doing it this way?
I like the Contender Series a lot, especially because you have to get the finish to get the contract. There's no that's a blanket statement. There are a couple people who get the decision and still get a contract, but for the most part, you really have to impress the boss. And I think it sets a nice tone going forward that if you want to make it big in this enterprise, in this business that you're putting out, you gotta be a showstopper. You gotta be someone who's constantly performing, getting the dubs, getting the finishes. And I think it makes for a more fun-filled event for the fans. I know it's hard. It is very hard out there to get the finish, especially when the dude is top-notch, just like you are. So I think it makes it for an exciting fight. I definitely like this, the Contender Series a lot for that exact aspect. And I disagree with the sentiment, Derek. I definitely don't think I do agree that a roster can get bloated, can get too many people. You're not seeing, the fighter you saw 6 months ago fight for a year. You're like, oh, where is this guy? Oh, I already forgot about his last outing. But what I think Dana White has it right is he's cutting a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And it sounds harsh. It sounds mean to say that I think he's, they're doing the right thing by cutting people. But I do think it adds a little bit of fire, that little bit of grit. Like, oh, I might get cut if I lose to this dude. Bro, that's my family. Like, we eating out here. I think it adds a lot to that, especially with the fact, like, you're bringing in 6 contracts. Like, who's taking their contract? Who are you taking that contract from? I think it adds a lot to that, and I really like the way it's going forward with that. It's rough when you're taking away people's, means of eating. But I think in this game, this is the only one where I like it, and I accept the fact that if you don't perform, you're kind of kicked to the curb What do you think, Derek?
Well, I believe that the UFC, it's not this way in absolutes. Nothing is absolute, right? But I like that it's somewhat of meritocracy, man. So I like it because it's saying we got hungry dogs who are coming over here trying to take your spot. So y'all who aren't top 15, who are just kind of middle of the pack, you better step it up or you getting a boot. And I think it should be that way in any workplace, man, where you got the new person who really wants that spot and you work in IT and you doing your thing and you haven't really been innovating and all that. And you see like, hey, man, I better step it up or else they just going to replace me with somebody else. So I like it. It brings the competition up to a higher level, and I do not think that you can have too bloated of a roster today because guess what? COVID is dropping people left and right like flies, literally and metaphorically. Like some people can't fight because they get COVID, they get sick. Some people literally that's RIP with the COVID stuff, man. So all this stuff is real, you know what I'm saying? Global warming, all that, you know, come on, listen. But guess what? There's one thing that's legit is that fists are going to be thrown this weekend, folks. So tune in, all that good stuff. Mondays and Fridays, 8 a.m. You know where to find us. It has been a pleasure. It's been an honor. But I think that's it for us, man. We'll catch us on Monday for the post show. Until next time, folks. Peace.